Hi, Empress Justice here. If you'd like to check out daily readings, you can check them out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also check me out on TikTok, where I do occasional, sorry, I'm trying to find my brush, where I do occasional timeless pops readings and short videos to do with manifestation and alchemy. You can also check out my June 2022 reading on Empress Justice Tarot YouTube, as well as my new moon in Rohini reading on Empress Justice Tarot YouTube. I'm going to be doing a live for the full moon in Jester reading. That's going to be taking place on Tuesday, and I'm going to do that as early as I can. So I'll most likely do it at 9. So I'm going to be doing that because the first phase of the, the first moon phase or the first lunar phase of June is going to be taking place on the 7th of June. And that's going to be in Purva Falguni. So I want to do the reading before that first phase comes up, even though when is Tuesday? Oh yeah, that's on the 7th. So I'm going to be doing it dead on the first phase of June. So yeah, the full moon in Jester reading is going to be taking place live on IG starting from 9 o'clock. And then I'm going to be doing I'm going to be doing that reading. But that's going to be for the full moon in Jester reading. Okay. So yeah, that's about it. The reason I came online today was to kind of expand on a story that was originally posted by Targeted Tony LA. He asked me to take a look at it, and I feel like what this video is going to be is primarily for those who have only just found out that they're targeted individuals, or people who are not targeted individuals who have found out that maybe their relatives or their family are targeted individuals, and they wanted a crash course in exactly what to look for when it comes to doing their research. There's plenty of documentation out there talking about brain-computer interfaces, directed energy weaponry, voice to skull, RFID chips, nanotechnology, and how all of that combines in order to control people emotionally. It's not so much mind control as control of the emotions, because it's one thing to control what people think, but you can't control what people feel unless you emit a certain frequency over them. So with all that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer everybody to better people online that would have a better grasp of explaining how Havana syndrome works better than me, better than any ordinary person going through this. So I'm going to start reading from the experts here. This is the information that Targeted Tony LA posted on his story. Hopefully you can still find it on Instagram, okay? His name is Targeted Tony _LA _ backup. If you can find that and you can find his story, then you will probably find most of the information on there. But for those who don't, I'm going to read the experts to you now so that you can do your own research into exactly what's going on with you, what's happening to you. If you're a new TI, or if you've just found out about what gangstalking is, you can find out through everything that these experts say. So we're going to continue on here. So this is a list of people, of medical doctors, PhD scientists, and former government agents that have basically not only co-signed gangstalking, but have given like legitimate evidence and information about how some of the weapons work. Dr. John Hall is a very prominent figure, a very prominent whistleblower. He's one of my friends on Facebook. We don't talk, but he's a friend on Facebook. And then we've got Dr. Catherine Horton, who's a PhD Oxford University scientist. She's a particle physicist who actually spoke out about gangstalking. She had a court case recently. Apparently it didn't go well for her, but the fact that it went as far as court, that's a really, really good sign. And then we've got Dr. Robert Middlebrook, Dr. Harold Mandel, Dr. Daniel Leibowitz. Oh, about Catherine Horton, she's also married to William Binney. who is a former NSA analyst. Now, I'm going to get to him in a second. Dr. Max Williams, PhD, Professor in State Department. Dr. Barry Trower, PhD, Government Scientist. Now, Dr. Barry Trower is British. Okay? And Dr. Barry Trower, as far as I know, he's worked with MI5, MI6. He might have worked with CIA, like loosely, but he is British, and he has been talking about, satellite technology and electronic weapons being used on people for like decades. So Dr. Barry Trower in particular is a very, very good expert when it comes to understanding how all of this works. You got Dr. Michael Hoffer, Dr. Colin Ross, Dr. Ed Spencer, Dr. Sue Arrigo, or Sue Arrigo, depending on her heritage, Dr. Douglas Smith, Dr. Terry Robertson, Dr. Robert Duncan, PhD, former CIA engineer. Okay, so with Dr. Robert Duncan, there was somebody that I used to talk regularly with called Tyrone Dew. I don't know where he is right now. Hopefully he's okay. But I haven't heard from that man in years. But Tyrone Dew did an interview with Dr. Robert Duncan where they sat together and they explained how people are being behaviorally controlled by these technologies. And Tyrone Dew is one particular example. He explained how these weapons, the psychotronic weapons, the electronic weapons, and the psychological harassment were all compelling him to be violent. Because with the street theater, this is what people don't realize about the street theater. It's not just supposed to trigger you. It's supposed to trigger any subliminal messages that have been suggested to you by the voice to skull technology. So, there's a lot of NLP techniques that gangstalkers are being asked to do, and the gangstalkers don't know why they're doing it, but there are certain NLP techniques. One technique that I've heard of is where, okay, so say somebody wants to make you trip up, right? So what they'll do, they'll walk beside you, right? They'll walk beside you and they'll copy your behavior. And they'll copy your behavior all the way up to where they pretend to fall. But it's at that point where they pretend to fall that you actually fall. That's an NLP technique that is used to control behavior. So that's one example. That's why when targeted individuals are out on the street, they can get multiple people copying them or multiple perps copying them. It's copying them, and in a bid to push them into more, destructive behavior or more clumsy behavior, or to throw you off, or to actually control what you do. With every 15th or 16th action that you take, they want to control what you do leading up to that point. But in order to do that, they have to mimic, or they have to mimic what you do in order to control it eventually. So that's one NLP technique that is used on many targeted individuals. I don't know if that's the case with Tyrone Dew. Sorry about the noise outside. I don't know if that's the case with Tyrone Dew, but it wouldn't surprise me if those techniques were being used on him, and that was part of what he was explaining to Robert Duncan. And speaking of Robert Duncan, I think Robert Duncan is also one of my FB friends, but, again, we don't talk because he's got thousands of TIs. So, not ironically, but understandably, he'd only want to talk to the high profile ones. And then you've got Dr. Doug Rock. You've got Dr. Errol. No, it's not Eric. It's Eric Karlstrom. All right. And then who are the next experts? You've got, this is important because you've got psychologists up in here. You've got Dr. Paul Marco, PhD psychologist. Dr. Robert Steele, former CIA analyst. Dr. Ben Kolodzin, another PhD psychologist. Dr. Curtis Bennett, professor, Dr. Corkin Cherubini, author, Dr. Sean Andrews, scientist, not doctor, I'm so used to saying doctor now, but it is William Binney, NSA whistleblower. Now, William Binney is married to Dr. Catherine Horton, and they live together in America. Okay, now, as far as I know, because of the videos that I've seen of him, he can no longer walk, and I think he's lost a leg. And I think that might have been as a direct result of the weapons that he's been subjected to. You see, Targeted Tony came through with this. All right, so Dr. William Binney, he was an NSA whistleblower. He is married to Dr. Horton, who is the particle physicist. Again, they live together in America. He has lost his leg and he can no longer walk now, so he's in a wheelchair everywhere. There's Kirk Weeb. I hope I pronounced that right. It's Kirk Weeb, NSA whistleblower. Karen Stewart, NSA whistleblower. I think either I've blocked her or she's blocked me. I'm not entirely sure on Facebook, but I don't care who's blocked who. You need to go and follow her. You need to follow her posts because she's very, very important in this TR community. You need to go follow her right now, okay? So you've got Carl Clark. I think it's Karen Melton Stewart. You can find her on Facebook. You need to go follow her right now because she's got a lot of information. Knowing me, there probably would have been some blocking somewhere because of political views. Dr. Carl Clark, CIA whistleblower. Kevin Shipp, CIA whistleblower. Mark Phillips, CIA whistleblower. John DeCamp, Army intelligence whistleblower. All right, so this was said by a Senator Daniel Inouye. I hope I pronounced that right, Jesus Christ. There exists a shadowy government within its own air force, its own navy, its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue its own ideas of the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself. I don't know who said this about the deep state. Did I get a screenshot of that? Hang on. I don't know who said this about the deep state. I'm trying to see if they got a screenshot. Hold on. Now I've got to look on downloads. Downloads, all right. Yeah, so I've got to look at downloads again. Who said that about the deep state? Did I? No, I didn't. Damn. All right, so yeah, there is definitely a shadowy government, but the way it works is that it's a network within a network. So it's not just going to be the government. It's not just going to be security services or domestic services or intelligence services. It's going to be specific individuals within those services that forms a government on its own. Now, a lot of people have said that's Freemasonry. I have said that's Freemasonry, but I think that it's not. And the reason why I think that it's not is because I think that within these members of our chemical fraternities and the government and banking and all these important institutions, what I believe is going on is that there's a network within a network in and of itself that is covert. So I think even Freemasonry isn't really in control of this. I think it's something deeper than that doesn't have a name yet because we don't know what it is. So I think it's this government that is really controlling everything and everyone. It's not the government that we see. It's not the government that we really know about. It's a covert one that has no name. To us anyway. Right? So, first off, we've got Dr. Paul Batcho, former DARPA senior scientist. He's reported that electromagnetic torture and harassment are being illegally used on citizens, on a widespread basis with harmful intentions. He's also stated that cell towers are weaponized to broadcast brain resonance frequencies that can disrupt human minds, classifying one aspect of the technology as synthetic telepathy. And again, psychics and tarot readers and astrologers, the irony is that they're being called demonic and all the rest of it, when really they're actually the first targets, because they're the ones who are the most likely to activate the God gene. So brainwashing them first and most brutally would be a port of call, I'm thinking, for these people. Because if they can get through to the real psychics, then they can get through to everybody else. Dr. Paul Batcho holds a PhD in computational and applied mathematics from Princeton University. That's quite a high-up university in America. Carl Clark, former CIA MI5 operative, has stated he was involved in massively illegal operations such as performing organized stalking on victims and deploying electromagnetic weapons to anonymously inflict pain and terror. He has stated, the undoubted goal is to have select people end up in psychiatric institutions. If a target seeks help by going to the police or the doctor, they don't get taken seriously. Now, I know there are going to be established TIs that have experienced that. I've certainly experienced that. Yeah, it is a goal to get select people into psychiatric institutions, which means the institution of psychiatry is not really there to get people well, it's to get people controlled. So the CIA, psychiatry becomes like a heavy man, like a heavy to the military industrial complex. So the psychiatric industrial complex is one of many henchmen to the military industrial complex. The prison industrial complex is the other henchman. So, yeah. So everything is military. Everything, you got to see everything is military, right? Especially, from the outset, it starts with military power. Every empire that you have ever thought of that's taken place in the world, it always started with military power, and it always ended with it in one way or the other. So let's have a look at the other experts here. Karen Stewart, she's on Facebook, follow her. Former NSA analyst, became a victim of organized stalking and electromagnetic weapon attacks after voicing complaints that credit for her work had been stolen. She has exposed that government counterterrorism agencies are deliberately creating false dossiers on innocent Americans, targeted individuals, to implement criminal programs of organized stalking and electromagnetic torture. She has stated that the perpetrators involved the FBI and the NSA. Listen, all of this is true. When I was in sheltered accommodation or supported accommodation back in London, there was one person that I had befriended, and she was basically bragging to another cohort of hers that had worked with Brent Mind at the time. She was basically bragging to her, and I know both their names. She was basically bragging to her that there was a file on me. And, there was a file on me, and, there was saying all this stuff, we need you to follow her, this, that, and the third. She was basically bragging about the fact that they have files on people that they use in order to get people involved in this, basically what can only be described as genocide and human trafficking. Only they're being told that they're fighting for justice. Them and their unqualified arse, their criminal arse, their degenerate arse is somehow going to be responsible for protecting the country. Really, girl? Really? But anyway, that's Karen Stewart. Follow her on Facebook. Her name is Karen Melton Stewart on Facebook. Follow her. All right. We've got Mark Phillips, former CIA operative, witnessed behavioral control programs that are being used to torture, exploit, and subjugate innocent U.S. citizens. He revealed that these torture and conditioning methods studied in laboratories in the past are now applied remotely with electronic weapons, like we've been saying. Many TIs have been saying that. William Binney, Catherine's husband, former NSA technical director, has stated on Reuters News that electromagnetic weapons give leverage into what people are thinking. Yes, this is true. Because you've got to remember the brain-computer interface and the remote neural monitoring, which is a lot easier than people think. They've got the technology for everything. William Binney, former NSA technical director, has stated on Reuters News that electromagnetic weapons give leverage into what people are thinking, as well as have the capability to physically assault people through walls using infrared to follow the individual around inside a building. I've experienced this too. In the same supported housing, right? There was a Romanian family that I used to drag the shit out of on all my social media. They had that same infrared technology that was basically spying on me and spying on all the progress of what I was doing in my bathroom. Every time I used to sing a high note, they used to switch on the electronic torture. They used to do that all the time. And also, there was at one point where the mother of the family, who had piss yellow hair and eyes like a fucking demon, she basically turned around and started taunting me about stuff that I was doing in my bathroom that she couldn't possibly have known. When I started to detect some radiation activity, where I can't remember what it's called. It's called an overhead pipe. Where the overhead pipe was in the bathroom, that's where I detected radiation energy. When I pulled that apart, I found that the rest of the wall was beige, but there was this sort of brown covering right in front of it. And I think behind that brown covering was a piece of equipment that would have been used to facilitate what the Romanian family was seeing on their laptop. So all of this technology, this infrared technology, is 100% real. If it's not being used on me right now, I'd be surprised. If it hadn't been used on me right now, I'd be surprised. Only people don't technically brag about seeing everything that I'm doing now because they know better. Right? So, you have got... I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. I'm sorry. You're just going to have to look. You're going to have to look that up. This man believes that the FBI leads the process to wrongfully name innocent citizens as suspected terrorists or criminals and centrally command Department of Homeland Security Fusion Center contractors and local police to commit and condone the organized stalking and organized covert torture with stealth electromagnetic weapons against them. He has stated that the CIA and FBI routinely torture, kill, falsely imprison, or force suicide upon targeted individuals using electromagnetic weapons. He has stated that the CIA and FBI... He has witnessed that the CIA and FBI inhumanely and regularly torture the targeted person and also force her to live under horrific conditions that could be reasonably expected to lead to suicide. So it really is murder. Yeah, again, I'm not making it up. Barbara Hartwell, former CIA media propagandist. Ha! Not media propagandist, honey. Okay, so former CIA media propagandist. Actually, Britain used to have something like that called MI7. Now, you might have seen MI7 in Johnny English. Now, you have to remember how media propaganda works. The truth is hidden in plain sight. So the truth about what our governments are really doing, you're more likely to get that in a comic book movie than you are likely to get that in a documentary, like the real truth about what people are doing. Remember, you got to remember, what we're being shown is a mirror to how the real world works. So you got to think opposites when it comes to what we're seeing in the media. And she was one of the people who was responsible for that. God damn. She faced violent retaliation from exotic electromagnetic weapons upon becoming a whistleblower. She suffered brutal electromagnetic attacks which resulted in severe and unbearable pain in her head, violent projectile vomiting, heart symptoms, and laser cuts burns. I've gone through this. A lot of targeted individuals have gone through this. I went through that just last night. Pain in the head, heart symptoms, laser cuts, gone through all of that, still going through all of that. She writes, it is a well-known and prolifically documented fact that such electromagnetic weapons exist. Hold on, let me read it again. Because the weapons in your brain, it disorientates you and fucks with your cognitive thinking. So let's start this again. She writes, it is a well-known and prolifically documented fact that such electromagnetic weaponry exists and has been operational for decades, used by the military and intelligence agencies, including but not limited to the FBI, CIA, NSA, DIA, and DARPA. DARPA, I think, or is it? No, DARPA is owned by the Crown. That's another thing you have to consider. DARPA is actually owned by the Crown, as far as I know. DARPA's owned by the Crown, so they, so trust and believe that the UK is definitely involved as well. It's not just the Americans. It's just that with the Americans, they're about as subtle as a sledgehammer, and there's more people there, which is why you're hearing more about what's going on in America than you are here. But trust and believe, it's global. And especially if it's partially owned by the Crown and if the UK is involved with DARPA. Global. Trust and believe. Global. They've been using that technology in Rwanda and Zimbabwe, among many places. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they've been using that in the whole of Africa. So she states that the CIA is heavily involved in illegal covert domestic operations, having no oversight. All right. Kirk Webb, or I think it's Kirk Webb, I'm not sure. Former NSA intelligence analyst has stated that electromagnetic weapons are being used to torture thousands of targeted individuals in an organized fashion. It supports the assertion that electromagnetic weapons can remotely manipulate the nervous system and influence actions. Yes, it can. This is absolutely true. Forced speech, forced behavior, all of this is a thing. All of this has been done. It's been done to me. It's been done to several other people. It's a thing that can happen. Absolutely. The technological range, the amount of technologies that these creatures have is just unbelievably next level. All right, let's see. Dr. Doug Rock, former U.S. Army officer, has stated that electromagnetic weapons are real and illegal practices of the military have harmed civilians. Richard Lighthouse, former NSA engineer, asserts that the CIA and FBI are involved in the organized stalking and electromagnetic torture of thousands of innocent U.S. citizens. He has stated that the government performed psychiatric fraud to maintain the torture program, convincing the public that targeted individuals are mentally unstable. He writes, psychiatric diagnosis of mental disorders is a fraud. Now, I've said this for years, right? Somebody said, these medical experts that came over, when I was living in the supported flat in London, just before I came here, there was one particular neighbor that was a complete nightmare to deal with because she was a perp. And on top of that, she was mentally ill. So she was an absolute nightmare to deal with. And she was using electronic weapons on me. I thought she was assaulting me sexually with these weapons. But as it turns out, she was just using them on my head. Okay. Now, she was just using them on my head and on my jaw. Right. So, these people from Mind and from Mental Health Services, and Brent came over and started talking a bunch of shit about paranoid schizophrenia. And I said to them, do you know how paranoid schizophrenia is originated? It originates from irregularities with the CR1 part of the brain. So the only way to know for sure if I have paranoid schizophrenia or anything else is to do a brain scan, to do a CAT scan to see if there's any, if there's any injury to the brain. Because if there's any depression in the brain, any psychosis in the brain, anything like that, it's going to show up on a scan. Yet these people want to diagnose you with a bunch of bullshit. No diagnose, they want to diagnose you with a whole bunch of bullshit. No scans at all, right? No scans at all. And they want to tell you that you have paranoid schizophrenia simply because of your beliefs that you have researched, but they haven't. Where are the scans? Where is the blood work? Where are all these things? Where's the saliva work even? Where are all these, where are all these DNA tests to prove what kind of diseases you actually have or brain dysfunctions that you actually have? They have nothing except the claim that has been backed up by all of these experts for decades. And that's supposed to prove you're crazy. No, I shouldn't say that word crazy anymore, not to describe mentally ill people. That's supposed to prove that you're mentally ill or mentally unstable. Man, get the fuck out of here. Just stop. So, he has stated that the government performed psychiatric fraud to maintain the torture program, convincing the public that targeted individuals are mentally unstable. He writes, psychiatric diagnosis of mental disorders is a fraud. There are no chemical tests, no laboratory tests, no brain scan, no MRI, or no CAT scan that define mental illness. He believes that the electromagnetic attacks can come from cell towers, satellites, and drones. This is true. This is very true, okay? So, yeah, this is very true. Everything that he's saying is very true. They could do scans on the brain to ascertain whether you have a mental illness or not. They could do it. But the thing is, then they'd have to say where the injuries came from. That's the catch-22. Because if I've been telling you that that weapons have been fired in my head, if I've been telling you all this, and you look in my CAT scan, or or you do a neurological scan on me, and you find that yes, there is substantive brain damage, then there comes where the fuck did the brain damage come from? Because it's not going to come out of a fucking puff of smoke. It came from somewhere. So that's why there are no scans before they diagnose us with the paranoid schizophrenia thing. Because then they'd have to prove where it actually came from. Mental illness comes from brain damage. Any change in your mental health comes from brain damage. It comes from a part of your brain malfunctioning and the rest of the brain having to rewire itself in a bid to accommodate. That's where mental illness comes from anyway. And yet you ain't going to do a fucking scan. Oh, this person's behaving irrationally. That could mean anything. You could literally be the one. Imagine somebody's poking you underneath the table and they do it for about 10 hours before you snap and clock somebody in the face in front of everybody. Now, they've poked you in the leg under the table, which is why you smacked them. But the fact that you smacked them and people didn't see the leg, somebody poking you in the leg from under the table because nobody saw it or felt that, you're the crazy one. That is how psychological illnesses are being defined and that is how they're being defined now. That's how they're being diagnosed now. Do you understand what I'm saying? So yeah, he's right. It's bullshit. I happen to think that every form of healing has a place. But because of those medical breakthroughs' origins, and because of how those medical breakthroughs are used, it's very, very difficult at this point in my life to trust them. For any TI, it's difficult to trust them. Brian Tew, former Department of Defense contractor, has become a victim of organized stalking and electromagnetic torture after attempting to expose criminal behaviors of the FBI. He confirms that these electromagnetic weapons can target any part of the anatomy, inflicting pain, inducing high-pitched ringing in ears, yet we've all experienced that, and even manipulating a person's memory and thought processes. Ted Gunderson, former FBI specialist agent, stated that organized stalking is an ongoing, active, covert, nationwide program that is in effect today. He believed organized stalking has been operational since at least the early 1980s, and that thousands of victims have been targeted by an illegal government rogue criminal enterprise that is active 24 hours a day within the US. Ted Gunderson published these statements in 2011 and passed away 3 months later. Ain't no coincidence there, mate. Dr. Robert Duncan, who I mentioned before, who did an interview with another TI, Tyrone Dew. Sorry, covering this. Oh, sorry, I've got to lift my arm because I'm getting pins and needles. Dr. Robert Duncan, former CIA engineer, has declared that organized stalking, electromagnetic torture, and mind control are being used on targeted individuals. He has stated that the government remotely tortures innocent citizens through the use of electromagnetic weapons, having the ability to inflict extreme pain, as well as insert sounds like the extreme pain that I went through last June. Having the ability to inflict extreme pain as well as insert sounds, including voices, into a person's head. This is true as well. I experienced this at its worst a few years ago. He also asserts that electromagnetic weapons have the ability to read thoughts and control the mind, inserting or blocking thoughts, manipulating emotion, blocking or falsifying memory, controlling dreams, induced dreams, we call it in the community, which subliminally affects waking people, which subliminally affects waking consciousness, and hacking into the 5 senses. This is where, some people say that there are different types of psychic phenomenons. There's, you can smell, there's clairsentience, clairaudience, clairvoyance. All of this is down to the mind control. Now, are there psychic abilities that are absolutely real and organic? Yes. We are all born with those intuitive faculties in mind. But when they're particularly induced, it's not usually because the person is especially gifted. It's usually because they've been subjected or selected for a mind control experiment into these technologies, making them making them apparently good at being psychic when really all that's happened is that they've been induced with this technology and they've been fed information that has been gathered by military services. Do you understand? And they could be fed any type of information about another person. So a lot of these psychics who seem to be really accurate in what they're saying, some of them might be genuine, but others of them might be mind control experiments that have been buying into their own hype. That's why you really have to be careful. And that's another reason why people need to be more careful before they start demonizing psychics. Because at the end of the day, whoever it is that the grassroots movement demonized, like anybody, they are actually the most vulnerable to mind control techniques and to these types of attacks. They are going to be the most vulnerable. So that's why any type of people that targeted individuals throw bigotry on, I give the side eye. I give the side eye to that, because the people they're throwing bigotry on, they are the ones who are going to be the most vulnerable. So let's continue. He said that the government uses the guise of mental illness as a cover story and that psychiatry has no real science behind it. I know my ex would agree with that, boy. So yeah, those were all the experts in targeted individuals and gang stalking and all the rest of it. If you need more information, you can follow these people online. What I might do is, over time, I'm not going to do it immediately, but over time I might add links of each person. Dr. Catherine Horton is a good place to start because she has a YouTube channel online called Stop W. She has a YouTube channel called Stop 007 online. Let me just see if I can find her. I'm going to see if I can find her, but Dr. Catherine Horton is a good person to start with. Dr. Catherine. Also check out Ramala D. Dr. Catherine Horton YouTube. Let me see if I can find her. So when I find her, I'll give you her channel. Okay, this is her. Dr. Catherine Horton. Stop 007. All right, so this is her channel and I'm subscribed to her. Let's see if she's got any more videos out. I haven't actually been watching her videos in a while, admittedly, and her last video was 5 months ago. But the video you really want to check out is Bill Binney and Dr. Catherine Horton. This is the video that you want to check out because here they talk a lot about the electronic weapons, how they work, how they've been affecting people. There's another interview between these two and Dr. Millicent Black as well that you might want to check out. There's another one on DEWs and implants and election fraud. So yeah, check all of those out. And that'll be a good place to start if you really need to get some insight into how these people work. Check out Karen Melton Stewart on Facebook. Check out John Hall on Facebook. Robert Duncan should be there as well. Robert Duncan, I think, is one of my FB friends. You should check him out on Facebook as well. So those are just a few people that it's a good place to start with. But given the list that I've given you online, you should be able to look online for yourselves. Okay? Now I'm wondering where this guy is because he's late. I'm expecting company today. Just a friend coming over to shoot the shit. But he's late, man. I'm wondering where he is. So that is it for today. That's it for my updates. Up till now, when it comes to me, is that him? Up to now, everything in here has been really, really peaceful. Nobody's been bothering me. But again, quiet phase, loud phase, you know how it is. What goes up must come down. But yeah, I thought I'd do this video for you guys because Targeted Tony LA really came through and he gave me such rich material for this video. I want to thank him so much. I love you guys. How do I close this out? So yeah, targeted individuals, gang stalking, all of it is real. If fucking mental health want to section me for that, they can go ahead and do so. I got a shit ton of bills to I've got a shit ton of bills to pay. So if they like to section me at any point during this time, they're quite fucking welcome to, okay? I could give a fuck anyway. Everybody else is lying. So I ain't got time for that. Yeah, so yeah. So that's it. Now I gotta go. I love you, my fellow TIs. Stay strong. I love you guys so much. I hope I made sense throughout this video. I stumbled over my own words a lot, but you know, the old cerebellum took a hit. So I wasn't making much sense. Or hopefully I was making sense. I never know until I watch these fucking things, but but yeah, I love you guys, my fellow TIs. Peace and blessings. Mwah. Bye-bye.